In this episode of the Live Unrestricted podcast, we're talking about the biggest limiting belief that is not only holding you back from finding freedom from food obsession, but also achieving your highest potential and changing your life. It is deep, it is sneaky, it is hard to spot, but once you do and once you get rid of it, everything will change in your life. So it's so good. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Live Unrestricted podcast, a show where you'll learn how to heal your relationship with food and your body so that you can focus your time and energy on more important things like your personal growth. I'm your host, Sabrina Magna, food freedom coach, and my mission is to help make your life happier and healthier without stress, overwhelm, or guilt about food. If you love the show, please do go out and share it. And if you're looking for support with your relationship with food, details about my programs are in the show notes. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump in. My friend, I am so excited for today's episode. This is such a juicy one. And the reason why I'm really looking forward to having this conversation is because this will apply to every single one of you. And whether it's around your relationship with food or your body, but the more you listen, you're also going to see how it applies to other areas of your life, whether it's your job, your career, your relationships, your financial situation. So I'm just going to jump right into it because I've got a lot to cover. So if you're listening to this right now and you have been in this pattern where you have been struggling with whatever it is around food that's a big challenge for you, whether it's binging, overeating, feeling a lot of anxiety around food, needing to control everything, tracking, weighing, micromanaging, and just overall not feeling quote unquote normal around food. And this feeling that eating and food has been this really big challenge and obstacle for you for what feels like years, or a lot of you, it's decades. And you're not giving up. You keep working on it. You have tried a million diets. You have read the books. You listen to this podcast. You follow the accounts. Like, you are not giving up. You are still committed to finally finding freedom from this. But for some reason, you are still not where you want to be. Either you feel like it's getting worse and harder over time, or you feel like, okay, I'm making a little bit of progress, but I'm nowhere near what I would call this healthy and sustainable and just normal relationship with food. And so why is that? I was having this conversation with someone yesterday around this one belief, this one subconscious pattern that lives so deep in all of us that it's hard to even notice and to even accept that it's there. But as long as we don't bring awareness to it, number one, and then really pay attention, really work on it, really work through it, then it will continue to subconsciously sabotage your efforts. It will continue to drive your actions and lead you into more of the same. So what is that belief? Well, in order to uncover it, I'm going to ask you a question. When you see yourself 6 months from now, and I want you to really think about it for yourself. When you see yourself in your relationship with food, how you're thinking about food, how you're interacting with food, your relationship with your body, like when you think about your life 6 months from now, what do you see? And I don't want you, for this specific exercise, I don't want you to think about what your goal is or what would be the ideal scenario or what you really want and what you convince yourself that you see. But being extremely honest with yourself, like really vulnerably honest. And for most of you, when you do this, when you see yourself 6 months from now, what you might realize that you see is more of the same. I'm going to be in the same spot, doing the same things. I'm still going to be overeating. I'm still going to be struggling with my health. I'm still going to be tracking my food, stepping on the scale, restricting, dieting, feeling out of control around food, thinking about food 24/7. For most of you, if you are really, really honest with yourself, that's likely what you'll see. And I say this with so much compassion because I have had certain patterns in my life and certain goals that I've gone after that when I really got honest with myself and I thought, okay, well, where do I think I'm going to be 6 months from now? The default future that I was living into was bleak. It was a lot of the same or sometimes even worse. And so if you did that exercise and you got really honest with yourself and you saw either a lot of the same or things getting worse, the next question is why? Why do you think that 6 months from now, things are going to be the same or worse? And I'm going to pause. I'm going to pause right now. I'm going to let you answer that for yourself. And if you need to, pause this podcast and answer it for yourself. Why do I think that 6 months from now, things are going to be the same or worse? And if you answered that, then you might notice thoughts that come up, which are really beliefs that sound a little bit like, because I've tried so many times and nothing has worked. I've tried so many things and nothing has really changed things for me. So what's the point? I don't actually think that I can change this. Whew. That is a hard one to be honest with yourself around and to realize that deep down, even when you are listening to the podcast, you're reading the books, maybe you're getting support or you are following the accounts and you're journaling and you're doing all of the things and you're really working on it and you're really like paying attention to it. But deep down, the belief that is driving you on a daily basis without you even realizing it, no matter how many diets you've tried, how many things you've tried, is that at this point, because you are using your past as a way to predict your future, which we all do, it's human nature, even though it doesn't serve us and it just creates a lot more of the same, it is human nature. Because of that, you now operate from this belief, from this identity that I don't actually believe that this gets to work for me. I don't believe that it's possible. And again, I have been there so many times. It is a hard realization to get to when you're like, but I'm doing all the things, I'm taking the actions, I'm learning, I'm reading the books, I'm educating myself, but there is still deep down this protective armor that I have developed that won't let me believe that change is possible for me anymore. And I want to explain why this is happening so that you're not blaming yourself and you're not thinking what's wrong with me for thinking that. It's actually a really normal thing. It's a natural thing to build up this protective armor, because what has happened is chances are you have done diet after diet, attempt after attempt. A lot of the women I work with inside of Food Freedom Academy, it hasn't just been like 6 months that they've been struggling with disordered eating. It has been years, decades, since they were 10, 15, 20, a really, really long time. And they have tried a lot of fad diets, a lot of quick fixes, a lot of the willpower and the hacks and the quote unquote strategies. And at the beginning, they had a lot of hope, right? Every time that you started a new diet, you believed this time is going to be different. This time I'm going to get it together. I'm going to lose the weight. My life is going to change. I'm going to get healthy. And in the beginning, you didn't have as much baggage. And so it was easier for you to believe that change was possible. But because most of the things that you have likely done were these surface level quick fixes, diets. I mean, we've talked about these things before at length on this podcast, that they weren't meant to be sustainable, right? They were Band-Aids. They were, the duct tape on the leaky pipe. They weren't meant to create this healthy relationship with food. And actually, they usually made your relationship with food worse, but you didn't know that. You didn't know that at the time. You blamed yourself. You were told that it was your fault, that you didn't have the willpower, you didn't have the discipline. So what happened is, with every quote unquote failed attempt, this belief in yourself, your self-esteem, your self-image eroded a little bit more every time. And every time you quote unquote fell off the wagon or gained the weight back or fell back into your old patterns with food, this little belief of maybe there's something wrong with me got bigger and bigger. And so over time, what started to happen is your nervous system would feel a lot of pain every time that you believed in yourself, that you allowed yourself to hope, that you allowed yourself to think that things were going to be different, and then they didn't, and then you fell back. That was really, really painful, right? Like disappointment, shame, despair, those emotions are really painful. And I'm telling you this from a place of experience, because I went through that with my relationship with food. And then I went through it a lot in work, in business. What's something that people don't really talk about when it comes to running your own business is the amount of failures that you will have to come up against. And I talked about this a lot with Luke, of how when I first started my business years and years ago, I was so fresh-faced. I had no baggage, right? If you think about, like, I was going on a hike and I had no backpack. Things were really, really light. And so it was easier. It was easier for me to take risks. It was easier for me to experience disappointments and failures because I didn't make them mean so much, because I didn't have as much baggage. But then what happened is, the more failures I started to experience, because that's just like the natural part of running a business. Like, it just, if someone had told me years ago when I first started how many failures and disappointments I was going to have to come up against, I truly don't know that I would have gotten into it. But here I am, and I'm so glad that I did. I was so naive, and I'm so glad that I was. But then what happened is, every failure becomes this like really heavy rock that you put in your backpack. And so if we go back to this hike analogy, you're going on this hike, and every failure, every past mistake, every failed attempt becomes heavier and heavier, and you start to carry it with you, and it becomes this really heavy baggage that you carry around. And you carry that pain. Your nervous system remembers that pain. It remembers the emotions of disappointment, the emotions of feeling a failure, the emotions of shame and guilt. We remember all of that. It gets like trapped in our nervous system if we don't do the work to release it. And so it starts to mean more and more and more. So for you, going back to this pattern that you've likely experienced, every time that there was a failed attempt, it meant more about you, right? It meant more about your discipline, your ability to change. And it eroded your belief that you actually could change. So your nervous system, there's a part of you that developed this protective armor to protect you from feeling that disappointment, to protect you from feeling the shame that you have felt in the past when you actually did believe that you could change and then you didn't. So you might continue to take the actions. Maybe you continue to work on your relationship with food, to maybe you're still in the dieting cycle. So maybe you're continuing to do another diet, or maybe you think like, this is going to be different. This sounds different. But deep down, there is this protective part that won't let you truly believe that you can change. Because if you truly believe that you can change, then you risk getting disappointed. You risk triggering those past emotions that you felt of shame. And that feels really dangerous for your nervous system. We want to protect ourselves from feeling those emotions. So that's what that protection mechanism really is. Knowing this, knowing why this is happening, is just one side of it, because we cannot reasonably change if we don't believe subconsciously that we can. Meaning, you can't continue to operate with this belief if you truly want to create something different in your life. And let me tell you why. When you have this deep down belief and protection mechanism that I don't believe that I can change, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I'm going to talk about 6 ways in which you actually start to subconsciously sabotage yourself. So number 1 is that a temporary defeat is turned into a failure. So let's say that you are someone who's like, okay, I am going to heal my relationship with food. I'm going to work on becoming an intuitive eater. I want to start listening to my body, challenging my diet mentality. And the goal is to stop thinking about food all the time and to trust myself so that I no longer binge. And you are starting that journey. You are doing the work in whatever way you're doing it. So whether it's you're reading books, or you're listening to podcasts and you're journaling, and maybe you start to feel like, okay, I'm making a little bit of progress, maybe, like change is slow. And so you're doing it. But then what happens is maybe you have a hard day, or it might be a hard week. You go on vacation, or you go out for dinner, or something happens and you overeat, or you binge, or you go back to tracking, or you feel really anxious, or you feel triggered, like those natural things that will inevitably come up as you are healing. And what I see personally as a coach when I'm working with my clients, I see those as opportunities, because I'm like, beautiful. We use this as a way to learn something, as a way to get curious. Like for me, I love those opportunities because those are the things that you learn from. Those are the things that you're able to extract lessons from. But when you have this subconscious belief that I don't actually think that this is going to work, I don't believe that I can change, you turn a temporary challenge into a failure. See, this is proof that this is not going to work. This is proof that I can't change. This is proof of XYZ. So that's the first thing. And then, of course, as a result, it's much easier to give up on yourself and go back to your old patterns. The second thing, when you have this subconscious belief that this is not going to work for you or that you can't change, is that your brain subconsciously filters and looks for signs that you are failing. So I think we've talked about this before on the podcast, but your brain has something called the RAS, your reticular activating system. And what this is basically is a filter in your mind. because we are exposed to information, like millions of bits of information constantly. I'm looking around my living room right now and I'm like, I can see the sun shining. There's a plant in the corner. There's a TV over here. There's sensations on my body. Like, it would overwhelm our senses to be able to notice everything that's going on around us. And so what our brains filter for is the things that we think are important. So there's the classic story of, let's say you are looking to buy a new car and you really want to buy a red car. Well, what's going to happen is once you make the decision that you're going to buy a red car, your brain is going to get the information, red cars are important. And you will start to notice red cars everywhere. And you're going to start to think, whoa, were these red cars always everywhere and so common? Or do I just see them more? And to give you a little felt experience of this, I want you to look around the room right now. This is an experience podcast. And I want you to look for everything that is green in your house, in your apartment, in your office, if you're on a walk. Just look for everything that you can look around. Everything. I can see my plant. I can see my other plant. I can see oh my God, I have so many plants around. My leggings are green. Okay, beautiful. You did it? Great. When you did that exercise, how many blue things did you notice? Probably not many, right? Because you weren't looking for them. This is your RAS at work. It will work to look for the things that you deem important, or it will look for the things that confirm your beliefs. Luke used to have this belief that the drivers in Montreal are terrible. And I mean, if you have heard anything about Montreal, it is kind of like a trope. Like it's a common joke that the drivers here are not great. However, is every single driver in Montreal bad? Of course not. I would say the majority of the drivers in Montreal are actually good drivers. And so my belief is that drivers are good in Montreal. And his belief is that drivers are bad. And so what do you think happens? He only notices the bad drivers. If there's one bad driver out of 50, he will only notice the one bad driver and not the 49 good ones. Whereas I notice the 49 good drivers and I don't really notice the one off bad driver. And so if your brain is on the default program or mode of, I can't change, this is who I'm always going to be, I am someone who struggles with food, I fail, right? Whatever it is for you, then you will naturally, your brain will naturally just filter out any proof or evidence of the opposite. You won't see it. You won't see your wins. You won't see your good days. You won't see the ways in which you are actually making progress. You're only going to see your quote unquote failures and mistakes. And I used to do this when I had no idea how my brain worked. I used to go to bed and just think about all of the things that I did wrong that day. All of the things I didn't have time to do, all of the things that I didn't do right. Like, it was just a constant. And now, because I actively work to change my wiring in my brain, at the end of the day, when I go to sleep, I think about, what are all of the things that went well today? What are the things that I'm proud of? What are the things that really made today a win? And because of that, what do you think happens? I naturally start to look for wins more and I see them more. And if I see more wins, what do you think happens about how I see myself? I see myself as a winner instead of a failure. And so the more you have this belief deep down that you can't change and this isn't going to work for you, you're going to have that feedback in what you see on a daily basis, what you experience, what you filter in or out. And then that feedback is then going to come back into your brain and reinforce. And so it's this negative feedback loop, just in the same way that you can create a positive feedback loop. The other way that this could show up in your life outside of your awareness is that you might not reach out for support or invest in yourself if deep down you don't believe that is going to do anything, right? Like I think of all of the changes and things that I've been able to experience in my life in the past 5 years. And it has been as a result of investing in people to help me get there, because I know that I could not get there on my own. Because if I could, I would have already. And so all of us, whether it's paid support or free support, all of us need and deserve support, especially for things that we have been trying to work on and fix on our own for months, years, decades. But what might happen is that if deep down you don't believe that you can change, then you're not going to invest in the very thing that could lead to change. And even if you do invest, what I also see sometimes is that you might invest, you might join a program, you might get a therapist, you might do that first action, but you won't fully implement what you are being encouraged to do or what is part of the plan or the program or whatever your therapist is suggesting, because there is that subconscious block. And it would require you to believe that it would make a difference. The fourth way that it shows up in your life, and this one, oh man, is it so common, and I have been stuck in there too, is that you stay stuck in research mode instead of action mode. So you do the things that feel good and create a false sense of momentum. You learn a lot. And again, nothing I'm saying here is something that I have not done before. You listen to the podcasts, you read the books, you follow the social media accounts, you do these things that create a sense of breakthrough in your mind. And breakthroughs are addictive. They make you start to see things differently and you learn something new. And as humans, we just love learning. And so you have these breakthroughs and you research and you know a lot, but you avoid doing the uncomfortable things, the risky things of actually implementing what you are learning. Because if you were to take the risks, for example, every time I've taken big risks in my business and I've put myself into action mode, it usually brings up a lot of my subconscious triggers and beliefs and pain, because you are risking failure, right? Like I could reasonably have spent the last 6 years just researching and learning how to build a business and how to grow a business without doing the uncomfortable things like starting this podcast, for example. Now I've been doing it for over 3 years, and so I don't feel a lot of fear around it. When I first started, you guys, I procrastinated for months. I knew I wanted to do it. I knew I was meant to do it. But you know why I didn't do it? Because then I would have to do the work, which would be uncomfortable. And I would have to put myself out there and put myself in the way of possible criticism and people not liking it. And that would feel really personal because this is like an expression of me and my stories and my education and my insights. And so I could have researched for years and listened to podcasts about how to start a podcast and read the books and done the courses without actually doing it, because it's the action. It's taking the risk and putting yourself in that uncomfortable position that then makes you face what you actually believe about yourself. It makes you face possible failure. So that's another way that it can show up for you in your life. If you have this like deep, very deep rooted belief that this isn't going to work for me, is that you're going to do the things that feel good, but then not take the action on it. The fifth thing is that instead of using curiosity, your brain looks for a way out. So what I was talking about before is whenever I see my clients experiencing a challenge, I get excited because I'm like, oh, perfect. Let's look at what we can learn from this. And so instead of whenever you experience a roadblock or an obstacle, and I experience them a lot, my friends, instead of looking at it as what can I learn from this or how can I make this work, your brain will go to this is proof that it's not working, and it will look for a way out. Because at the end of the day, that curiosity, that willingness to take everything as a lesson is what will get you to the other side, is what will create that resilience and that ability to keep going and to use every obstacle and challenge as a stepping stone. And the last way that this can show up in your life is that you don't allow progress or wins to actually sink in. I have seen this, and I've had to call out some clients on this because one of the things that I do with my members inside of Food Freedom Academy is we work on rewiring their brains. And so I will ask them to actively look for wins and progress because they're not used to doing that. They're used to looking for their failures and their mistakes and the things that they haven't done well. And so to be able to reset that RAS in their brain, which is really necessary, as we've just talked about, I'll ask them for look for wins and progress. And what I've seen before, not with everyone, but what I've seen at times, and I'm able to notice it in people's body language and physical language, is that they'll say the wins out loud. Their mouth will say it, but they don't allow that win to sink into their bodies, meaning that they don't allow themselves to believe that they are actually changing. Because if they were to believe that they were actually changing as a person, then that would threaten their very belief that they can't change. And so it creates this cognitive dissonance of I've believed that I couldn't change for so long, and that belief has started to keep me safe from negative emotions. So now that I'm actually changing, what do I do with that information? I'm just going to throw it away. And so you'll often see that as people will negate or discredit their wins. Like, oh, well, I had a really good day. I didn't overeat, but it's only been a week, right? But it's only blah, blah, blah. There's always the but, because going back to your brain wants to be right. So it wants to confirm whatever belief that you have. My coach has called this the guardian of your mind. And so think of this like wall that's like the guardian of your mind that is meant to protect your belief system. So if you have this belief system that I can't change and nothing's ever going to work for me, if you have an experience in your life where you do make progress, where you go an entire week without overeating, where you're able to leave food on the plate, and you're not working with someone who's helping you actually absorb those wins, what the guardian of your mind is going to do, it's going to either delete, distort, or generalize that specific situation or win. So delete means it's just not going to pay attention to your wins and progress. Distort is that it's going to alter reality. So I've actually seen this quite a bit where people will start making progress and they'll have an experience where they eat just a little bit beyond what feels comfortable. But in their mind, they see themselves as someone who struggles with binge eating. And so they'll come and they'll say, I binged. And when I dig deeper, I'm like, that wasn't a binge. You like slightly overate. And those are two completely different experiences. So being able to have that reflected back at you and to see the ways in which your brain, and you're not doing this on purpose, but in which your brain is really trying to hold on to these deep-rooted beliefs about yourself. And then finally Generalization is drawing these broad conclusions, right? So you might draw these conclusions based on a few or just one past experience. So maybe you have a week where you're doing really good and you're not overeating. And then when we go and we celebrate that, you say, yeah, but I've done that in the past. And then I would just fall right back into my own patterns. So it's that guardian of the mind that is trying to protect these deep-rooted beliefs. And can you see why, as long as you are distorting, deleting, and generalizing this information, you will continue to create this reality, because your reality is simply based off of your internal state. You will filter and look at experiences in your life through your own lens. And that will either perpetuate the same thing to keep happening, or it's what will allow you to see things differently and to create a different reality. So I hope that you are starting to see why this is such a pesky, persistent, and important belief that we need to look at and we need to eradicate if you want to be able to create a different experience with yourself around food. It's like touching a hot stove 100 times. Eventually, what's going to happen is that you stop reaching for the stove at all. Even if that 101st time, it isn't hot anymore. Even if I tell you, hey, my friend, I promise it is safe now. It is not hot anymore. Your nervous system is going to go, nope, not doing that again. So you miss out on what would have been that one time that it actually would have been safe. And that's why it goes so far beyond me just telling you, hey, things are going to be different now. You're doing things differently. We're doing something completely on the other side of what you've been doing for so long. That just won't register for your nervous system. And that's why doing that work, doing that body-based work, doing that mind-based work is so important. So I'm going to leave you with two things, because you know that I always want to make these podcasts as actionable as possible. So I'm going to give you two journal prompts or reflective questions to help you get a better sense of what's going on for you and bring awareness to your internal beliefs around change and your ability and your belief that it is possible to change and to heal your relationship with food and to become normal around food and to leave all of that crap behind you for good. So write this down, notes app, take a pen and a piece of paper, and really do this. Really do this. And remember that awareness, I hate this cliche, but it's true. Awareness is the first step to change. So question number one, if the part of me that doesn't believe change is possible could talk, what is she afraid would happen if I started to believe that I could truly heal my relationship with food? That's the first question. And the second question, what do I secretly believe about myself and food that I've never said out loud or that I've never allowed myself to actually pay attention to? That's going to give you a lot of insights. And again, remember one of the things I mentioned before, we want to avoid getting stuck in research mode, in analysis paralysis, in learning, but then not taking the risk, not putting yourself in a position where you are getting in the game and you are taking action and you are probably going to make mistakes and probably going to have a lot of hard challenges. And that's how you learn. That's how you get better. And I would say that that's one of the biggest reasons why our members inside of Food Freedom Academy experience so much change and transformation, is because they are taking that action to say, I'm investing in myself and I'm choosing to believe that this is possible. And then they're getting into action, like they are making the mistakes and they're experiencing the challenges, and they're able to come to the calls or come to the group and work through them and learn from them, instead of falling back into the belief of, see, this is why it's not going to work. I give up. It is so easy. It is so easy to give up on ourselves when we are isolated, when we are doing it on our own, because that's what feels safer and more comfortable for our nervous system, is to give up instead of persisting through it. So if you would like to learn more about how you can work with me and all of our amazing members in this supportive group of just like incredible women, you can go to sabrinamagnan.com/FFA. I think that link is also in the show notes, or you can send me a DM on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health if you have any questions. I love you so much. I hope that you really took this episode and you're going to run with it and you're going to do the journal prompts and really take action on it. All right. I'll see you on the next episode, my love. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.